Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Classic Comics, doing another comic review today. So this is Future State Wonder Woman #1, which is by Joelle Jones. I'm guessing that's how you pronounce it. And she did the cover as well, I believe, and it's a nice-looking cover. So, as I understand it, the story on this new version of Wonder Woman is she's from Brazil. Basically, there's another tribe of Amazons that were in the Amazon jungle, I guess. And she's basically the counterpart to Diana among those Amazons. I don't really know much more about the character, much more than that, but let's go ahead and get into it here. So we start in the jungle, and I'm going to call it a jungle, not a rainforest. And I guess the Amazon jungle is inhabited by mythological creatures, as we see this kind of dragon-looking thing pop up. And she slices its head off pretty casually. And even she notes it as she says, well, that was anticlimactic. And Joelle Jones did the art on this also, if I didn't... did the writing and the art, if I didn't mention that before. So then another Hydra pops up. And I'm not clear if this is another... So it's a Hydra because it's got the multiple heads. I'm not clear on if this is another Hydra or if this is the one she killed already that spouted new heads. So maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Anyway, it's got a lot more heads now. Attacks her. She calls for her Pegasus, Jerry, to come and help her. Yeah, okay. And then eventually it shows up. And she does slay the other Hydra, or the multi-headed Hydra, as well. Then after that, this, one of the children of the forest, or whatever you want to call it, pops up. And, you know, elf, gnome, fae spirit, you know, some sort of nature spirit. Shows up and says, well, I can't let you poach from these lands. And this Wonder Woman, her real name is Yara Flor, I believe is her real name. So Yara says, well, for the record, I wasn't poaching. I was simply borrowing it for noble purposes. So, personally, I don't think the best way to endear your hero to the reader is to have the hero walking around talking about how noble they are. I think if a character's noble, you should show that through actions and not have the character state it. Show, don't tell, as the saying goes. But the child of the forest says, look, leave. And actually, that's another thing. So she says, the reason she slew this Hydra is she says, I'm going to take this horn from the Hydra into the underworld and demand Hades return my sister warrior. If he refuses, I'll drive it into his heart. And then bring my sister home myself. So basically, she slew this creature so that she could cut off one of its horns and take it to Hades, to the underworld, and then demand Hades release this other Amazon, I guess. And if Hades doesn't agree, she'll stab Hades with the horn. Okay, why do you need the friggin' horn? You have a sword. So why don't you just stab him with the sword? I mean, it's... First of all, it makes her seem, honestly, kind of cruel, because she kills this creature for no damn good reason. And then she's going to stab Hades with the horn. It just really makes it feel like, what is the point of this? Why didn't you just go to Hades and demand the return of your Amazon sister? And if he doesn't agree, then attack him with your sword. Why do you need this horn? Ugh. But anyway... The child of the forest says, look, just leave the horn and I'll take it to Hades myself. And Yara says, you know, I can't help but think you're setting me up for a trick. You turned the entire jungle around once and you got me lost for nearly 2 months in the jungle. And the child of the forest says, I am sorry about that. I had just quit smoking and I was a bit irritable. Okay, so one of the things I feel really plagues modern comics is that so often, and I don't know how else to say, but this is something that I think particularly plagues female characters, is so often as they sound the same. You know, back in the, say, the golden age or silver age of comics, or early in the silver age at least, superheroes, they tended to have pretty much the same voice. You know, they all had this kind of standard sort of stereotypical good guy, upright, moral hero personality. You know, they all kind of had the same personality. They all talked the same. They all kind of sounded the same. That started to change with Stan Lee and Marvel Comics. That was one of the big innovations that Stan Lee brought to comics, was that he gave characters much more distinctive voices. He gave them more kind of quirky, you know, they had their own idiosyncrasies, their own quirks, their own character flaws. You know, Spider-Man did not sound like Reed Richards. Reed Richards did not sound like Captain America. Captain America did not sound like the Hulk. The Hulk did not sound like Thor. Thor did not sound like Doctor Strange. And it seems like in recent years we're sort of drifting back towards this thing, this type of characterization in comics where everyone kind of sounds the same. And in particular, they all sound contemporary, you know, no matter where they're from. Again, this is supposed to be this character. She's an Amazon from a tribe of Amazons deep in the Amazon jungle. Presumably did not have a lot of contact with the modern world, I'm guessing. I don't know. So when she talks, she sounds just like some contemporary person. She sounds too modern. Like here, when she's fighting the Hydra. You know, she stabs it with her sword, then flies by on her Pegasus, and she says, "Okay, perfect, now bang a Yui." As in, I guess, like, take a U-turn. I mean, would an Amazon from deep in the Amazon jungle talk like that? And it really just speaks to me to a lack of imagination, that the people telling stories in comics now, they can't seem to imagine anyone not sounding like them. Getting back to the plot. So the Child of the Forest opens a portal to Hades, and they enter Hades, or the land of the dead, and it looks like an airport terminal. And here we see Cerberus, who is the three-headed hound that guards the land of the dead, who is sleeping. And then they go to, you know, it's like a ticket counter or something. And again, this is TV drama storytelling. And that's another problem that plagues modern comics. I've talked about this before. The people who are making comics today, they're really not comic book fans. They didn't grow up reading comics. Yes, they may have read a trade paperback. You know, they probably read a trade paperback of, you know, Batman. They read some X-Men trade paperbacks, maybe some Spider-Man. They saw the X-Men cartoon. They watched the Batman cartoon in the 90s. But they really didn't read a lot of comics, if at all. So they're really not comic book fans. And their main reference point, their main exposure to these characters has been through TV and through movies and maybe, again, through cartoons. So when they tell their stories and when they draw this stuff out, it looks like a TV show. You know, it's the flat angles. And it's just such a waste because they don't take advantage of the medium, of what you can do in this medium. And they're just content to basically storyboard out a TV show instead of doing something that feels like a comic book. But anyway, so they go to the ticket counter. And this is another thing. So she makes the underworld look like an airport terminal. Now, I know in sci-fi and fantasy TV shows, they will do this sometimes. If you go to some fantastic realm or some other dimension, they will often depict it just looking kind of like our contemporary world, because those TV shows, they have to work within budgets. You know, they have monetary limitations on And they have time limitations also. So often they will depict these otherworldly places as just kind of looking like our world for simplicity of storytelling. And again, to stay within their budgets because they don't have the money to make these big fantasy worlds. You don't have those limitations in a comic book. The artist can do whatever he or she wants. And I mean, this is what you do. I mean, it just, to me, again, really speaks to a lack of imagination, in my opinion. So then the child of the forest is talking to the little demon at the ticket counter. And Yara tries to go through the turnstile, and it won't turn for her. So she struggles with the turnstile and struggles and struggles and struggles and finally just rips it off. And then hands it to the little demon, and then they go on. And what is the point of this? This takes up nearly a page worth of story, because you start here, it's all down this page, start here, go all down this page, and then about the top half of this page. So this is at least a page of story that is a total waste of time. And that's another thing with this story. It is very padded out. There's maybe half an issue worth of story in this issue. So they go through the turnstile, and it looks like an airport concourse, and you see all these people in various states of, decay. It reminds me, if you've seen Beetlejuice, if you'll remember the scene where they go into the afterworld, and then the afterworld looks like this, it's kind of like a doctor's office. It's this office, and you have to sit there, you have to take a number, and then sit there and wait for your turn, right? And there are all these people, like people who are decapitated and carrying their head in their hands. They're all dismembered or rotting in some way. And that's what this feels like. And again, it's not that isn't a valid way of storytelling, but for a comic book, that's what you come up with. That's kind of the best you can do. It just, to me, is kind of disappointing. Now, of course, in Greek mythology, when you're going to go to Hades, to the land of the dead, you have to cross the river Styx, right? And to cross the river Styx, you have to you have to take the ferry, which is manned by Charon, the ferryman. So they go down to this pier, and they've got to wait in line because, in comic books, that's what you want to see. You really want to see people waiting in line. I mean, that's exciting storytelling, right? Hey. So, yeah, they stand in line to wait. And then Yara realizes, oh, oops, you got to pay. She asks the child of the forest, did you know we had to pay? And the child of the forest says, well, of course. I mean, didn't you? And she didn't know. So let me get this right. You're an Amazon, but you don't know Greek mythology. I mean, you know about Hades, you know about the land of the dead, but you don't know that you got to pay the ferryman to get across the river. Obviously, she never heard that song. Who is it? Krista Berg, I think it was, who did that song in the early 80s, Don't Pay the Ferryman, which is about that, so... Insert random pop culture factoid here. So now she's like, oh, well, what do we do? How do we get across the river? And of course, she doesn't have money, so the ferryman says, back of the line. So she goes to the back of the line again, and she gets in line behind this sumo wrestler. And then she notices, hey, the sumo wrestler has a coin. So what's her solution? Well, try and steal his coin, of course, because that's what heroes do. They steal from people. And then the child of the forest bites him in the butt, or has her hog bite him in the butt. He throws his coin up in the air. She catches it. So now she has a coin, but now the sumo can't pay. So then he's angry and he attacks Yara. Instead of being apologetic and kind of like, oh, sorry, but I really needed this. She's like, oh, you want to do that, huh? Yeah, okay, bring it on. And then she attacks him and just kind of attacks everybody. She's throwing bodies all over the place. Because, again, that's what heroes do. They attack people for no damn reason. And then Cerberus, the dog, shows up. So I guess you'll get a fight between them next issue. I know who I'm going to be rooting for. So, wow. Yeah, this is generally a big disappointment to me. Now, to be fair, Joelle Jones is a very talented artist. The book looks great. She's good. There's lots of pretty pictures here, but those, in my opinion, don't make up for the very drawn out story and the rather shallow and not just shallow in there's not much of, but shallow in that she's a very selfish and kind of arrogant character that Yara Flor is. And yeah, overall, I'm just very disappointed in this issue. Personally, I would say skip this. Wait for the trade paperback if you've got to get it. In fact, wait for the trade paperbacks to make their way to the second-hand vendors like Books A Million, half-price books, that sort of thing. Yeah, so just thumbs down on this issue. But let me know what you think in the comments. Did you like this or not, like me? Also, if you found this video informative, please do hit the like button. While you're at it, please do sub to the channel. Also, please do hit the bell for notifications. And I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching.